When that came out, when Batman vs Superman came out, were you part of the like the group of people that, because I was the group of people that like you felt like no one likes this movie except for me because everyone seems to be
Yes.
trashing it. That's the
Hmm.
part of the group that I was, because like I didn't even know people liked it until I started going onto like the internet and watching videos and like meeting different people like that aren't even in my area, and I was like, that is weird. Like I didn't even know people even like this movie, because that was one of my very first. It's gone now because it's fucking terrible. But that one of my very first video that I ever did on YouTube was talking about Batman vs Superman, and when I put that video out, like a ton of people were like, "Oh, you liked it too? Like, wasn't it awesome?" And they were just having this, and I was just thinking like, there's more people that like this movie, because I seriously thought I was like the only one. Because like after that movie, I was like, "Oh my god, like it was great," but like everyone that I talked
Yeah.
to was like, "What, you liked it? That movie was fucking garbage." I started watching like this is when I used to watch reviews. I don't watch movie reviews at all anymore. But this is when I used to watch them, and like literally everybody was trashing it. I was like, did I see the same movie that everyone else did?
The same thing happened. I saw BBS. Well, I didn't see it in theaters because like my work schedule, I had barely any free time. So I saw Civil
Mhm.
War in theaters, didn't like it. And then I heard bad things about Batman vs Superman, but at the same time, I kind of stopped really caring at that point. And then I bought it on Blu-ray the night it came out. You know, I bought the Ultimate Edition, and I watched the
Mhm.
Ultimate Edition first. And I put that on. I said, "That was fucking incredible! Like, well, what are people talking about? That was awesome." And then I
Yeah.
did hear that they did cut out 30 minutes. I'm like, okay, that could play a huge factor. But then like still like I was in that camp. I'm kind of like that was an amazing movie, and like I just looked online and actually started digging into it. I'm like, wow, no one seemed to really like it that much. But then there's like
Mhm.
a really strong group of people who really did like it. So it's like okay, so I'm not crazy, but in my own personal life, like everyone I ran into just didn't seem to like it.
Yeah. And that's just funny. Well, I mean, even obviously the Ultimate Edition is the way to see it, but even like the
Yeah.
theatrical version to me wasn't bad either. I was just like, whoa, this is great. And then the Ultimate Edition just enhanced everything, because obviously I had my issues with it. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
the pacing seems weird and all that. And then when you find out like, oh, well, because 30 minutes of the fucking movie had been cut out, you're like, oh, that makes sense. So when you watch the Ultimate Edition and
Mm-hmm.
all those blanks are filled in.
I know. I think I told you this story, and you said I had to mention this. So when I first saw, so when BBS first came out, I saw it on. I saw it. I loved it. I was talking to a chick at the time, and she invited me over because she's like, "Want to come over, hang out, watch Batman vs Superman?" I said, "Sure." And when we got there, well, when I got to her place, she was making advances towards me to like, "Oh, let's do some stuff." I completely ignored her to focus on the movie. And every now and again, I was leaning over. I'd be like, "Oh, you're gonna like this. Watch this." And she's sitting there. She's just sitting there going, "Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Yeah." So she didn't really care about the movie that much, but I was so into it. Then by the time it was over, the whole 3 hours over, I just went home. That was it. That was it.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I got off
god.
work, we watched the movie, and I enjoyed it. I already saw it, so she got to experience it, and then I left, and that was it. She never talked to me again, and I wonder why.
Oh my god, that's funny. I can just imagine. Do you ever think back on that and be like, damn, could have got lucky
It's
that
every
night?
yeah, like a week later, like I was trying to hit her up and hang out again, and she ghosted me, and then I was just thinking like, damn, I probably shouldn't have. I saw it like at the moment, but I was so into the movie that like I just didn't really care if that makes sense. When I'm locked in, I'm locked in. So I didn't even acknowledge her besides like, oh, you're gonna like this part. Watch this.
You're gonna like that.
When I first saw BBS, it's weird how like so many like a lot of people hated it. Once I looked into it, I'm like, dang, people really hate this movie. I loved it. It's just weird that I think I told you every person I've ever showed the movie to, because I
Mhm.
always showed them the Ultimate Edition, they always enjoy it. It's always so weird. That's why I always think the blowback was like kind of overblown, like the pushback
For
was.
sure. It was.
Because every person I ever showed, they were like, that was pretty good. Or like I told you, I showed a friend of mine, she's like 21. She's only ever seen MCU movies and like Lord of the Rings, fantasy stuff. So she's not really into
Mhm.
movies. And she doesn't know anything about Batman or Superman or anything. So I give her Man of Steel and BVS, and she liked them a lot. Wow, that was really interesting and different. I like it. And like,
Mhm.
so like, I guess disconnected from I guess from like what you know about Batman, and like does enhance it. But also a friend of mine who loves Batman, he loved that direction that they took with it. And he goes, "That's a really interesting story we haven't seen before
Yeah.
on screen. That's why he loved it so much. That's why I liked it too. Is it's so it's so different. It's not an origin story. It's very different part of his career. That's why I liked it so much too. It's like it's a very cool take. That's why I like it. It was fresh,
Yeah. And I think at the time too, it came out. I mean, right now it gets a ton of praise. You see a lot of like people talking about it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And like, man, that was really good. But I'm just like, well, where were you guys back in 2016? Like everyone, it also came around the time where like the MCU hype and like if you were an MCU fan, you had to hate DC movies. Like I know so many people
Yeah, they were pushing
that
that
so
vibe.
many
Yeah.
like, yeah. And that's when it was like the cringiest time, dude, bro. Like that's why like around that time I myself too got caught up in that where I just started hating Marvel movies because of all the fans. Like
Mm-hmm.
if the fans are toxic, I automatically just stay away from that kind of shit. Like at the time, like so many Marvel fans were like super toxic, and I'm just like, nah, I'm good. I'll stick with these. I'll stick with my DC movies. It's like I don't want to be one. I don't want to get
Yeah.
involved in any of that stuff because I don't have a personal bias, and I like both. And then the other part is I don't want to get grouped into those kinds of people. I hate being grouped into like a
Okay, makes
certain
sense.
I hate being grouped into like a certain type of person because I'm a very multifaceted person. I have, like different, likes of everything. So I don't like to be like, even when I was a skateboarder, like I didn't want to be called a skater because I'm like, bro, I'm so much more than that. Like I have different hobbies and I do other shit. It just happens that I'm
Mm-hmm.
like I good at skateboarding. Yeah, it was around that time where like the hate on the DC hate train was like crazy, crazy. And a lot of people that I know that said they hated Batman vs Superman didn't even see it. Like I remember so
Oh
many
yeah, same
people
here.
like they didn't never even seen it, but they're like, "Oh, Batman vs. Oh, that movie's trash." And I'm like, "Did you see it though?" And they were like trying to like give me like plot points, and I'm like, "Bro, that you just read like the summary on like IMDb or some shit, or you read some like Rotten Tomatoes like review
Mm-hmm.
and you're just like
Oh
regurgitating
yeah,
that." Rotten Tomatoes too. Like that's
I
when
give.
that's when I started to hate Rotten Tomatoes and like all reviewers was because of Batman versus
Mm-hmm.
Superman. There's a difference between journalism and just having like your own personal hatred for something or someone. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
because the Snyder hate was really bad at that time too. I'm just like, bro, like why do they hate this man so much?
Man, what did he do to make them niggas that mad?
It's weird.
And like because if you could see legitimate critiques against Batman vs Superman on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, and they were like,
Mm-hmm.
some that were legitimate, and those are the ones where I was like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, I get that. And then there were some people that were just like full on straight up hating. Like, where is this coming from? Like, Snyder's the equivalent of when my dad went for cigarettes and never came home. They're like attaching their own like personal childhood
Mm-hmm.
traumas to like why they hate this movie. And I'm like, what? Like, this makes no sense, dude. That's why I hate
Oh,
journalism.
yeah,
Like journalism, I think is like
mm-hmm.
it is insanely like
It's dead
baffling.
now at
Like
this point,
yeah, I'm just
really.
like what the hell.